Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Dan Collins just said, good morning, happy chappies. Yeah, I hope you all are all happy chappies today. It's feeling a bit sunny today, so I've gone with the, don't normally wear this hat away from shows, but I thought today it's a lightweight one. We'll go with that. Speaking of sunny days, I'm in Italy next week. When I get back, we've got a week-long giveaway. A week-long giveaway related to hydration. Been speaking to a company who basically are going to provide hydration things for you, and I'm going to have 5 to give away. That will be on starting Monday. I can't remember what the actual date is. Monday the 11th, I think. That's where we are. Now, we've got somebody new here, I think. Demolition 8838. Good morning from YouTube. Good morning to you as well. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. A more familiar site is our friend John the Ball. Good morning, John. Dan saying nice cap. Thank you very much indeed. I actually bought this specifically so that Fred could find me at exhibitions, and it works very well. I've worn it at Conexpo and at Balmer. There you are. Dan saying, sorry, I forgot to say you can post those items. Good. Just to be safe, Dan, please remind me of your address. Now, Andy Dyson, all the way from sunny Aberthorpe Power Station. You're down in Ken Hatcher country. I don't expect you to know that, Andy, but you are. You're down in Welsh Wales. Good morning to you. And Stefan Edwards, another demolition man, although he is over in the Netherlands. Usually. I'm never entirely sure because I think he moves around, but he is over in the Netherlands. So yes, not next week, the week after. We're doing a week-long giveaway. I'm planning to give one item. They're all exactly the same, but I'm planning to do one per person. So I'll be keeping a close watch on who's won to make sure that everyone gets a fair crack at it. But we've got 5. I don't know why I'm keeping it secret. There is a system called Air Up, okay? And it's basically a water bottle with a capsule that you put in it. The capsule doesn't flavour the water. It basically it emits a scent. I was going to say it fires it up, it doesn't fire it at all. It emits a scent, and when you're drinking, you get flavors. Your body says, yes, I can smell Coca-Cola, and your brain is fooled into thinking that you're drinking Coca-Cola when in actual fact it's water. And we've got 5 of those to give away. Stefan is indeed in the Netherlands. Gilles Blanc is here as well. Whereabouts are you this morning, Gilles? Love to hear from you. And Andy Dalvell, who I think is in England, but he's gone all French this morning, going bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. Good morning to you, Andy Dalvell. Yeah, we've got a packed show today. We've got, what have we got? We've got 2 trips to Italy, 1 to China and 1 to the world. All of that will make complete sense when we get there. So let's crack on, shall we? I'm going to roll the intro and get this show on the road. Now, apparently, I'm going for Gilles, but Gilles sounds French to me. Am I pronouncing that correctly? If I'm not, please let me know. Chris Ford is here. I know I'm pronouncing Chris correctly. And Kevin Hawthorne is here from Lakeland, Florida. Good morning, sir. Good morning, all the way from Florida. I realize you're being kind and saying good morning to me. I'm guessing it's sometime early hours of the morning or late at night. Not entirely sure. I should probably have a world clock on my wall to figure out where the various people are. If you were here yesterday, you'll know we had somebody watching from Fiji. I have no idea what time it is in Fiji. Anyway, we'll figure all of that out. Let me crack on, because it is Wednesday, the 29th of April. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, and the authentic voice of the global demolition industry. In today's show, Cimex and the future of road repairs. Give you a very quick heads up on that. This is a product that I saw when I was over in Verona a few weeks ago, nearly a month ago now. Really impressed. It looks a fantastic piece of kit. Not sure we're going to get it here, but looks a fantastic piece of kit. I'm looking forward to showing that to you. How Caterpillar is powering the world. LiuGong steps into spring, and I've already mentioned Verona once. I'm going to mention it again because in our latest stop on our voyage to Verona, we're calling in on our friends at Venieri to see what they'll have on display. And today's morning monologue is called "The Death of the Problem Solvers." The death of the problem solvers. You know those people on site, be it mechanically or construction-wise or demolition-wise, they'll look at a problem and think, yeah, I can work that out. I am fearful that those are slowly disappearing from our industry. That's what today's morning monologue is about. Andy Darville has just said, the 950 high reach I sent to the group yesterday is stunning. Can't wait to actually see it in action. I've not seen that. I'll have a closer look. Jim Turner is here. Morning, peeps. And Ken Hatcher is here, also down in Welsh Wales, as is our friend Andy Dyson. Both enjoying the sunshine, actually. There's Ken with the weather update, and there's Andy Dyson saying, a very sunny Aberthaw power station. How long have you got left at Aberthaw now, Andy? Seems to have been going on for quite some time, or maybe that's just my imagination. We shall see. Anyway, let's crack on. And we're going to crack on. We're going to do with a bit of Caterpillar, and then I'm going to show you this Simex product, which I actually think is really quite smart. Back after this. Right, I can quickly update everyone. I'll let you know that also joining us today, Mark Whiting, Paul McHale. Morning, Paul. He's hammering away in South Shields. If ever there was a town that needed a bit of hammering away, South Shields would be right up there. Good morning, all from a sunny Wakefield, says Mick Norton. Good morning to you, Mick. No work today then, Paul? Okay. Right, okay. This product. So I was introduced to it to one of the guys at Simex when we were over at the pre-Samota event, and he took me through it and he explained it to me and he showed me some photographs, and I thought, wow, that's really quite smart. I said, so is it available in the UK? And he said, well, it is available in the UK if anyone wants them. The problem is it's a skid steer mounted system, and the Brits don't really go much on skid steers, which obviously that's not entirely true. We have skid steers here, not often in this kind of application. But anyway, this is the Simex, I think it's called the ART 1000, and it's very, very smart indeed. Take a look. I'm with Dan. Dan says, now that's an interesting piece of kit. As soon as they explained it to me, it was like, yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that. Now, we've had one of our regulars has been missing in action recently. Turns out he's been missing for a good reason, and he's returned. Not entirely sure this advice will apply universally, but it's advice nonetheless. Here we go. Our friend Mick, morning Mick, says, morning all, I've been laid up. Never get in the way of a £170 cranky pig. You won't win. Next time I find myself in the presence of a £170 angry pig or cranky pig, I will bear that in mind. Thank you very much indeed for the advice, and welcome back. Hope you're doing well. Jim Turner saying, sow with a litter. Yeah, you don't want to get between a pig and her baby, should I say. Morning, Mick. How's Italy? Porcine incidents aside, sounds like it's fantastic. But Mick, I'll leave you to answer that. But I hope you're doing well, my friend, and good to have you back in our midst. We're going to be back with a bit of Caterpillar power in a moment.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, depending on how you come to Caterpillar, kind of depends how you perceive them. There are some people that think Caterpillar just make boots and workwear. Obviously not the case. There are those that think that they're dozers and excavators. There's more to Caterpillar than that. Caterpillar, in the not too distant future, could be powering the world.
The world needs more energy, and energy starts with Caterpillar. From drilling for oil to moving gas down pipelines to powering cities and data centers, Caterpillar Power and Energy is making it possible across the global energy value chain. With our unmatched portfolio and breadth of capabilities. In the upstream segment of oil and gas, our industry-leading gas turbines and reciprocating engines power onshore and offshore drilling. Our engines, transmissions, and pumps enable well preparation. Our gensets bring power. Our solutions increase operational efficiency and enable Caterpillar customers to operate in the most difficult drilling and well service environments. In the midstream, our gas turbines, reciprocating engines, and compression solutions ensure customers can confidently move natural gas down pipelines. Our products and services enable maximum performance, reliability, and increased sustainability so that our customers' operations stay running in these critical applications. In the downstream segment, Caterpillar Power and Energy delivers scalable power solutions for processing, refining, and export, helping customers meet today's growing global energy demand with confidence. In power generation, our gas turbines, gas gensets, diesel gensets, energy storage, power hardware, and services allow us to scale and deliver site-level power solutions to our customers. Our modular systems provide flexible, fast-to-deploy power for data centers, customer sites, and utilities, reducing time to power and ensuring power is always on when and where it's needed. From oil and gas exploration to power generation, from powering drill rigs to turning on data centers, the future needs solutions you can count on. Caterpillar Power and Energy is powering progress.
Could come a time where that could actually outweigh the bit that we all know Caterpillar for, the dozers and the diggers. Interesting stuff. Mick says, Jim, only to help separate the sow to give her some peace. Bloody thing went ballistic and I realised I'm too old to run and jump the pen. Morning to you, Dan. Yeah. See, I do love me a pig, but I wouldn't want to piss one off. I really wouldn't. We've got more. We've got something really quite pretty for you now. I realise we don't really do pretty on this show, but stick around after this and I'll show you something really, really pretty.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I'll answer this question very quickly from Andy Darvell. Do Cat make engines for ships? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Back in the day when I was, working with Caterpillar, they've got a Cat Marine Power. Not only do they make engines for boats and work vessels and ships and stuff like that, key provider to the RNLI, Royal National Lifeboat Institute, well, back when I was doing it anyway, they were big users of Caterpillar engines. So yes, I can tell you they absolutely do that. Now, I don't know what made me believe this, but in my head I did. Cherry blossom. When I think of cherry blossom, I always think of Japan, Kyoto, the lovely, pretty pink flowers. Turns out they have cherry blossom in China as well. And it don't half look good, even when there's a wheel loader involved. Honestly say that was the only disappointment in my once in a lifetime trip to Japan. Didn't get to see the cherry blossom. Wrong season when I was there. And Dan backing that up. Yes, Caterpillar even make engines for crushers. They make engines for a whole bunch of stuff. On highway trucks as well. They're have a look. Caterpillar Power Systems. That's what they used to be called. I'm not entirely sure now what they used to be called. Caterpillar Power Systems. We started the show with a bit of Italian flair with our friends at Cimex. We're going to do a bit more immediately after this. Yes, Voyage to Verona. It's getting very close. It's Tuesday next week. We're off, so I'll be here on Monday, and then we're away for a couple of days over in Verona. And one of the people we're going to be looking to catch up with is my mate, Filippo Venieri. And this is him.
We will show 4 compact new wheel loaders, 2.2, 2.5, 2.7, and 3 ton, in hybrid or regular diesel, and both in Z-bar kinematic system or telescopic boom. So we have a new kind of range of compact wheel loaders. Plus, we will show a product called 463H TL. TL, it means telescopic, so we will add the telescopic boom also in a 5-ton class loader. Venieri is the one and only Italian company remain in this business. So first of all, we show the proud and the capability of the Italian industry. Maybe we were more resilient, maybe we were more crazy to not sell when we received important offers. We are resilient, for sure we believe in what we are doing, and for sure we are proud to be Italian. We are doing our work with the Italian Army, we are proud of it, and for us it becomes more and more important to focus on a niche product or high demanded customer. Technology for us is something that helps us to drive better the business. We believe in sustainable technology and not in extreme technology, mainly in our business. On the job site, people want machine reliable and as much as possible easy to repair. So what we are looking for is to offer an outstanding product in terms of simplicity and reliability. So we believe in a simple product versus that in a fancy full electronic product. For us, hybrid solution gives to the customer the freedom to choose. Freedom to choose, that means you can work in full electric, for a certain time according to the battery pack that you have installed on the machine, or you have the genset on board that you can charge and you can load the machine. So you are not a slave to find the power. We will remain independent until our customer recognize willing and commitment to us. We are driven by customer. So as soon as customer tell us something different, we will follow the customers.
Cracking company, I have to say, cracking company, Vinieri. Looking forward to catching up with them. We've got a thing here from Dan. How are you enjoying Italy, Mick? Hope life is relaxed and stress-free. Well, rampant pigs aside. Dan also says, should be a good show. Looking forward to it enormously. It is my personal favourite, partly because of where it is. Verona is lovely. The food is lovely. The people are lovely. It's a very manageable show. We're basically at the show for 2 days. It's on for 3, but we're on at the show for 2 days because we can get it all done in that time. We're working with some good people, including Komatsu, Kobelco, MB Crusher, and some others as well. But it's nice and focused, nice and easy to get around. It's completely flat. Part of it is indoors, part of it is outdoors. Hopefully the sun will be shining. It certainly was last time I was there. So looking forward to it enormously. Ken Hatcher, going back to Caterpillar, one of the biggest heavy engine manufacturers in the world. They most certainly are. Yes, that is one thing. Italians are proud people. They are very proud to be Italian. I think I don't know which way around this is. It's a bit of a random thought. I would wear something with the Italian flag on. I know a mate of mine's got a navy blue tie with a very, very tiny Italian flag on, and it looks cool. I would never wear a tie with a Union Jack on. There's something about the Italian flag that just has a bit of, I was going to say je ne sais quoi, but that's French, and I don't know what the Italian for it is, but you know what I mean. Like a plug-in hybrid machine, yeah, absolutely. One of the things that came out of that conversation with Filippo, who is an absolute gent, he's a really nice guy. One of the things that came out with there was they're not doing technology for technology's sake, which kind of ties into the conversation we were having yesterday. Not technology for technology's sake. We'll apply technology where it's necessary, where the customer wants it and needs it, but otherwise, we'll carry on doing what we do best, and fair play to them. Collard Group have a fleet renewal auction today. There's a lot of demolition equipment in it. Yeah, I did get a notification on that probably 3 weeks ago. I did see that was coming up. Be interested to see how that goes. I mean, Collard's great company. They look after their kit very well, so there's bound to be some bargains to be had if you're in the market. Anyway, people, that pretty much brings us to the main end of the main part of today's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back to talk problem solvers and the death thereof after this. There was a time when the most effective classroom in the demolition and construction world was the passenger seat of a pickup truck on a Saturday morning. Young people didn't go because they were compelled. They went because their fathers were heading to the yard to grease the pins or prep a machine for Monday. And those young people weren't merely spectators. They were handed a broom or a spanner and told to get stuck in. They learned how a hydraulic hose felt when under pressure. They learned the specific scent of a hot engine. And most importantly, they learned self-reliance. Back in the day, if something went wrong in the middle of a shift, an operator didn't sit in the cab and wait for a van to arrive from the dealership. They climbed down, got their hands dirty, and they figured it out. That was the Saturday morning apprenticeship, and like so much of what was good about this industry, it's largely vanished. Now, understandably, health and safety regulations have tightened. But in the quest to make this industry perfectly safe, that learning process has been sterilised. The umbilical cord of generational knowledge has been severed. Young starters today often arrive with clean boots and a piece of paper, but without that bone-deep understanding of how steel and earth actually interact. And even when a spark of curiosity exists in the new generation, modern machines seem designed to extinguish it. Where a professional could once strip a pump or adjust a valve with a standard set of tools and a bit of patience, opening the side panel of a modern excavator today is like inspecting a mainframe computer. The industry has entered the era of the sealed unit. Core components are now encased in black boxes. If an operator so much as loosens a bolt to see why a sensor is tripping, they're told they've invalidated the warranty. We've become beholden to the manufacturers in a way that would have been unthinkable even 30 years ago. And that shift has changed the very nature of the fitter. In previous decades, a fitter was a specialist who could keep a dying machine breathing through sheer willpower and maybe a bit of welding. Now, they're often just parts changers. A diagnostic computer provides the code, they swap a module, and they move on. There's no solving anymore, only replacing. And when people are stopped from fixing things, they eventually lose the ability to understand how those things actually work. And then there's the training. Countless hours are now spent in drafty porter cabins watching PowerPoint slides. That's no preparation for the harsh reality of a working site. Somewhat belatedly, I think the industry is finally starting to admit that a week in the classroom and multiple choice tests don't make a person competent. They can pass a CITB test with flying colours and still have no practical idea how to handle a machine. True competence is forged in the dirt through trial and error and by watching a mentor who has seen things go wrong before. When people are trained solely in a controlled academic environment, they're trained to follow a script. On a demolition or construction site, the script is thrown out the window. We're producing operators who are fine at following instructions, but hesitant to make a decision when the instructions no longer apply. This matters because when the problem solvers die out, the industry becomes brittle. When a workforce can only function within the narrow lines of training and digital manuals, the slightest deviation causes a shutdown. Projects stall, not because of a lack of effort, but because nobody on site has the mechanical know-how to troubleshoot a relatively minor issue. Time is lost, money is lost, and eventually the art of the craft is lost as well. And this isn't just an issue in the sphere of plant and equipment. Veteran operators were more than just that. They were troubleshooters. They were masters of the workaround. If they encountered an awkward dig or a sketchy bit of demolition, they would see it as a mathematical equation and they would figure out a solution. Sadly, that old guard, the original problem solvers, are reaching retirement age. They're the ones who know how to tickle a machine to get that last bit of life out of it on a Friday afternoon. And when they pack up their boots for the last time, there's a legitimate worry about who will replace that much needed intuition. Because intuition can't be taught in a classroom. It can't be downloaded from a manufacturer's portal. It's grown. It's grown through Saturday mornings in the yard, through the grease under your fingernails, and through the freedom to fail and to fix. And this is not a Luddite perspective. I understand the world moves on. The air conditioning in modern cabs and the fact that operators aren't all deaf by the age of 50, they're all positive developments. But we must find a way to bring this problem solver back from the brink. We need a middle ground where young people can get hands-on experience without being buried in red tape. We need to demand that manufacturers provide the right to repair the equipment we've spent hundreds and thousands of pounds on. And most importantly, the industry needs to stop pretending that a plastic-coated ID card is the same thing as experience. Because if we don't, we'll be left with a fleet of the most advanced machinery in history sat idle on site while a dozen people stand around waiting for a technician to arrive and tell them which button to press. This industry was built on grit and steel and brains. But we're in very, very serious danger of forgetting that brains part. And once the problem solvers are gone, they're not coming back. And a site without a problem solver basically is is just a lot of people and a lot of machines standing still. There you are. The death of the problem solvers, brought to you exclusively on the Breakfast Show. What is the chat saying? No, what are we saying over here? Yeah, collars do have regular auctions. I think that's absolutely right. Sterilized is an understatement. Yeah. Jim Turner on the same point. Not many proper plant men come into the industry. It's just a job to most folk, not a way of life. That is why this show survives. That is why Plant Work survives, and why Hillhead survives, and why Earth Movers magazine survives. There are those in this industry who will see it as a job. And listen, we've all got to put food on the table, keep a roof over our heads. So we get up in the morning, we go to work, to earn a crust, and then we go home again. But that's where there are two levels to this industry. There are those that do that, do their 9 to 5, their 8 to 6, whatever it might be. They go home and they forget about it. But then there are others, and I think the fact that you're here is testament to that. That's not enough. You care for the machine. You go to exhibitions in your free time. You tinker with machines in your free time. You read magazines. You look at YouTube. It's not just a job. It's a way of life. It's a passion. And I do wonder if our desire to make everything measurable and manageable, and everything has to have a tick box, and unless you have a tick in the box, you can't do it. I wonder if that is gradually beating the passion out of people. There was a time when somebody, and I mean this with the greatest respect, because some of the smartest people I've met in demolition and construction probably wouldn't have an O level to their name, but smart as anything, smarter than me. There was a time where you would come out of school, maybe at 14 or 15, clearly not academic. School wasn't your thing. Further education was never going to be your thing, but you would follow your passion. You'd follow your passion into demolition or construction or one of the allied industries, maybe because your dad did it, maybe because your grandfather did it, or your uncle did it, and you followed them in because you had a genuine passion. You loved the equipment, you loved the industry, you loved being able to figure things out. And that was the routine back in the day. Now, with all that passion in the world, you've still got to get past a guy with a clipboard and a set of boxes to tick. And I'll be honest with you, if it were me, if I were recruiting, I would gladly swap passion, or I'd gladly swap O levels and GCSEs for passion. Give me the guy with passion and let me mold him. Don't give me somebody that's got all these academic qualifications but has no common sense, has no real feel for it. And I do think various aspects of the industry, I think that the way that we train people, the way that we're not allowed to take the kids into yards on a Saturday and get them to sweep up or do a bit of light maintenance or help wash the machines down, I think we've removed that. I think the training has made it worse. I think the way that machines are put together with everything in sealed component cases and stuff like that, I think we've gradually pushed those young people, those people with passion, further and further and further away from where they really want to be. Dan says, companies don't allow you to fix issues. I had a machine, had to get going as fitter was on the other side of the country. But that was the thing. You know, this may come as a shock to the younger generation, but in many instances, you know, back in the day, and I'm only going back, you know, in my career span, so maybe 20, 30 years, the dealer and the fitter was basically the last resort. Something went wrong with the machine, and the guy warming its seat with his rear end would have a bag of spanners, and he'd get out and he'd have a tinker, and he'd have a play, he'd whack something with a sledgehammer, it would splutter back into life, and everyone was happy. You would phone the dealer and the fitter as a last resort, not as the only resort. And as I say, in the span of a single career, we've moved away from that. And when you think about the cost involved in that, you're paying for Dan or Jim or Gary or Ken or whatever to be behind behind the levers of a machine. The machine goes wrong. You're already paying them. They get out. They have a bit of a tinker. The machine starts up again. Fantastic. So you've not had to pay for a fitter because the guy on the machine knows what he's doing. Now, not only do you have to pay for the fitter, you're paying through the nose because it's through the dealer. You've also got the fact that you've basically got to stand that machine down, sit there and twiddle your thumbs until the dealer arrives. It's a double whammy because we've pushed the problem solvers away from the sharp end. Gary, going back to yesterday's chat, no fried bread this morning, pancakes and maple syrup for breakfast. Breakfast of champions. One of my personal favorites. Dan says, I used a bit of duct tape to seal an oil leak on the threads of the hydraulic pipe. You won't have been the first. You won't have been the first at all. Jim says, I'm always thinking ahead and moving muck as efficiently as possible. Shame the management don't think like that. Yeah. Again, I think it's all part of this. This is almost certainly not a word, but the academicization. There's probably a better word than that, but this, we do this, and we do that, and we do this, and we do that. Demolition and construction written into a playbook might take up 5 pages, might take up 20 pages, might take up 100 pages. But none of them address but what if? What if the end of that building falls off when we didn't expect it to? What then? What happens when there's a loud bang in the undercarriage? And seem to have thrown the track here. Phone the dealer. There's no space for what if, and we live and we operate in a world where what if isn't even if, it's what when. It will happen. Sod's Law was written for this industry. If something can go wrong, trust me, on a demolition or construction site, it sure as shit will. Hang on a minute. Dan says, fitter told me he went to a job, change a fuse, as the operator wasn't bothered. Change a fuse. There you go. Yeah. Call a fitter out to push a fuse in. There's no desire in the young operators to learn how to use a spanner. Is it that? And I'm asking the question right now. I am absolutely 100% asking a question. I'm not making a statement. Is it the fact that young operators don't have the desire, or is it because one way or another they are forbidden from doing so? Forbidden by their management. That's not your job. We've got a maintenance contract with Caterpillar or JCB or Hitachi or whatever it might be. Partly that. Is it the manufacturers who have put everything into sealed units? And let's be absolutely honest. I rely upon those manufacturers to help support this show. But they haven't done that for the good of their health. They've done that because, they basically want something's going wrong with the machine. Oh, better go back to the dealer then. And it'll be genuine parts, which are more expensive, genuine fitter, more expensive. It's all a part of a money-making exercise. So who is to blame? Is it the young people with no desire, or is it the industry that has removed that desire from them? It's a question. It's not a statement. Dan says, I love thinking outside the box to get things moving and back to work sooner. Yeah. Oh, Gary Muirhead, that belongs on a T-shirt. Too many people are here for the income, not the outcome. Wow. The attitude is, I'm only here for the wage. I'm here for the income, not the outcome. Yeah. I wish I'd have thought of that. I'd have put that in that monologue. The problem-solving mind is what makes me have a machine design ideas. There's a beginning and an end to each task. What happens between those 2 points is the key to a healthy, profit, safe, and efficient work. My designs tick the boxes and solve the problems people have. Not just Jim. Not just Jim. What is that expression? Necessity is the mother of invention. If you have a need, not you're looking at it from on high, from an ivory tower, from behind a CAD CAM system in a manufacturer's R&D department. If you encounter a problem and you if this machine did that, or maybe if I could make it do that, we could fix that. That's where true innovation comes from. It does come from necessity. Totally agree with you, Jim. I always carry a couple of spanners and a monkey wrench in an adjustable spanner in my bag. See, that right there is the very epitome of what I was saying there. Dan has said that, and there's a bit of me that thinks, still, when I was coming up through the ranks, that wouldn't have been unusual. That would have been expected. That would have been the absolute norm. And now, I wouldn't say Dan was necessarily in the minority, but he's certainly not in the majority. Dan says, as we used to say, the vice grip's a man's best friend, as every man had a pair of vice grips. Yeah. Gary says, the problem with that, Dan, is we're always told not if you're not qualified to work on it, then you shouldn't touch it. Yeah. And the bit that does my nut in on that, he said, sounding like Danny does, the thing that does my head in on that is machine goes wrong. You know full well that you could fix it, but you've been warned not to. So you sit around and you wait for a fitter or the dealer engineer to arrive, plug in their laptop and their sonic screwdriver or whatever it might be. They fix the problem. So you've been twiddling your thumbs for the last 2, 3, 6 hours. Machine started again, and then you get the phone call to say, get a move on, you're behind schedule. We're behind schedule because your system wouldn't allow me to fix in 5 minutes, like Dan said, put a fuse in. I could have done that in 3 seconds flat and been back to work. But no, your systems require me to stand here with my thumb up my arse for the next 6 hours waiting for a dealer to arrive. Dan says, I'm in a company of 6 multimillionaires looking at trees in their garden and where they want them. Nice work if you can get it. Dan says, well, that's true, but I was told to wait for the fitter. But once they've gone, I've sorted it up and running in no time, rather than waiting hours to get back to work. Yeah. Jim says, it's the years of doing the job that sparks a more efficient design idea. Well, it does for me. I don't suppose everyone thinks like that. I don't suppose they do, but is that not kind of what you do? I mean, I'm just thinking about the setup that I have here. I come in the morning, but one of the big issues that I had when I first started doing this was I'd have to put my computer in a certain place and put the light on. And I used to have a backdrop behind me, so I had to put that up as well. And then I had to, configure the camera and it was a problem. It was a ball ache. Listen, it's not stressful. It's just, something you have to do. And maybe it'd take you 10, 15, 20 minutes every single day. And then at the end of doing whatever you were doing, you had to take it all back down again and then go back to work. So you're losing the best part of an hour a day, just fanning about. The way that I've got this set now is I come in the morning, the computer's already on, I press one button on my Stream Deck, light comes on, camera comes on, everything's ready to roll. The only thing over and above that I have to do is to turn on that sign there. That's all I have to do. Just press one button and I'm good to go. And as a result of that, I can get more done during the day. I can come in here, if there's a bit of breaking news or something like that. We had one a few months ago where there'd been an unplanned collapse on a demolition site. So I heard about it. I just came, press the button, and I'm live. I'm good to go. And that is part of, as Jim has described it, it's years of doing the job. I've been doing this for 6 years now, and I've learned the shortcuts. And if that goes wrong, do that. If that doesn't work, well, you've got a workaround. You've got a fail safe. Do that instead. That's where it all comes from. Dan says, true, Gary, but I told them to go away and sod off. I had to show a few fitters the actual problem as they didn't know what to look for. Yeah. And again, we were talking yesterday about de-skilling. Is that, I realize our focus here tends to be, demolition and construction and the operation of the equipment that's in the industry. But is that also the same thing among fitters and dealer mechanics and technicians? I mean, again, back in the day, fitter would arrive and almost by the sound of the machine or whatever it might be, it was like, yeah, it's probably, yeah, there it is. That's the issue right there, whatever it might be. Now, they are all reliant upon laptops and diagnostics and telematics and that kind of thing. We were saying this about driver aids. Most of the people that watch this show, if I stripped away all their driver aids, they'd crack on. It might slow them down a tiny little bit, but by and large, they would carry on because they were working without those systems before and they could work without them again. Do we now have the same issue with fitters and mechanics and technicians that we've got a generation now that have never known anything other than plug-in diagnostics? It's not a case of, yeah, I've heard that sound before, or, yeah, I know exactly where that smell's coming from. Have we lost that, or are we losing it? And again, our focus here tends to be on those that are operating the equipment and owning the equipment. What about those that care for it? What is the age bracket there? Is it the same? Are we saying goodbye to Bob in the workshop who could fix anything with little more than a roll of duct tape and a sledgehammer? And if so, what comes behind him? Who replaces Bob? Or are we literally surrendering ourselves to, if anything goes wrong, from a warning light on your dash, a bit of electrics don't work, so it's probably a fuse, but we don't touch it, through to, hydraulic pump failures or whatever it might be. Whatever it is, anything goes wrong, phone call, dealer, get out, sort it out, and yes, please send us a really big fucking bill. Is that what we've done? Are we surrendering to that? Interesting. I mentioned the right to repair in that. If you were here last week, you'll know that John Deere has just been sued to the tune of, I think was it 90 million quid or something like that over in the States by farmers, although I think it's going to have implications over in the construction sector, because they had basically, by hook or by crook, they'd kept people from maintaining machines. And, I think this industry has always been particularly good at maintaining the machines, but I think the farmers even more so, because, often work through the night or work ridiculous hours. And when a harvest has to come in, it has to come in now, not in 6 hours time, not in 2 days time when the dealer arrives. It needs to come in now. So farmers have become very, very self-reliant, very, very able to take care of the machines. And to a large degree, John Deere and all of the other manufacturers have locked them out of that. The farmers have won a very successful and potentially, far-reaching court case in the States. Could we now see a return? Are other manufacturers looking at this and thinking, could do without £100 million lawsuit? Maybe we do need to open up some of our diagnostics. Maybe we do need to put the more regular components more easily accessible and not impacting warranty when we fiddle around with them. And just one other point, I can see there's a few other bits in the chat there. It was one of those things, as I was writing it, I don't always know where an article's going. I'll come back to that. Anyone seen the movie Pet Sematary? Pet Sematary, the original, starts with a little boy of 3 years old called Gage. He's run over by a truck, dies, sent to the pet cemetery, comes back, and things go horribly wrong. Stephen King, who wrote that, was absolutely castigated for killing a 3-year-old boy. How could you do that? And I remember an interview with him saying, I never intended for that to happen. That's just how the book wrote itself. So these articles are very much like that. Very, very much like that. And there was a point, I was heading to a particular point. It wasn't right to repair. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just trying to get my train of thought back. Yes, I know what I was saying. The bit that occurred to me with all of this was how I realize we now live in a very disposable society. You go to Primark and you buy a T-shirt for £1.80. You know full well it's only going to last you about 2 months, and you'll throw it away and go and buy another one. But we now do exactly the same now on our equipment. We don't mend things, we replace things. Now, environmentally, I can guarantee that's not a good thing, but financially, that must be a terrible thing. If you were, the problem solver of old 10, 15, 20 years ago, yeah, I'll fix that. I'll weld it, or I'll bend something around it, or whatever it might be. That'll last another 500 hours, another 1,000 hours without incurring a cost. Now it's gone wrong. Hoik it out, replace it. What is the cost of that? Stand by your beds, people, because Peter McKenna, an occasional visitor these days, a very busy man over in the HGV world, but he's popped back in to say boo. Morning, Peter. Gary says the company is worried that if you hurt yourself, you'll have a claim against the company. It's turned into a blame culture and ambulance chasing companies. Yeah, that and as I say, the invalidation of warranties. That I think that seems to be a major concern. It is literally a case of, don't undo that panel, because that will invalidate the warranty, and then where will we be? Dan saying, great monologue, Mark. Again, well done. Thank you very much indeed. Gary says, what I do on a daily basis on site is when you're asked to do a task is think about it as you're the only machine on site, and how would you do it safely, effectively, and to my highest ability. Yeah. See, going back to Gary's previous point, I don't want Gary hurting himself. I don't want Dan or Jim or Ken or Peter or Chris or I don't want anyone hurting themselves. But I do think there is a way of people not hurting themselves and remaining empowered. If it's something that you can fix at ground level, you're not fiddling with anything electric that might give you a shock. You're literally unscrewing a couple of bolts, that was screws, unbolting a few nuts, changing the thing, or pushing a thing back in like a fuse, and then cracking on with your work. No one's getting hurt there. You're not making a claim there. Now, if it means stripping down the fucking engine or working up on top of the counterweight, okay, maybe we've got a different discussion to have there. But then I don't believe that the answer to health and safety is the complete and utter removal of empowerment of very, very smart people. We're not talking about our mate Mick's 170-pound rampant pig here. We're talking about smart people who can make a 20-ton excavator sing and dance. We're not talking about idiots here. No, we've done that one. Gary says, without saying get someone else to do it, I look at it as a challenge to complete it. Always helps you in the future. Learn from these challenges. Yeah. Yeah, and again, I know this is a conversation or a discussion that comes up on a regular basis. Not my job. Back in the day, it was. If something went a little bit wrong, quite wrong, I'm not talking about an engine going pop entirely, but something went a bit wrong, it was within the power and within the capability of the operator to get out, reach for his tool bag and go and sort it out and get back to work. Now, I do think we're breeding a generation of operators who, for one reason or another, it might not even be them. It might not be them saying, not my job in a stubborn, obstinate, arrogant way. It might be a case of, it's not my job because I've been told I can't touch that. Governor told me, no, that's off limits. I can do a bit of this, I can do a bit of that, but I can't unbolt shit. I can't unscrew things. I can't hit anything with a sledgehammer because they get the ump about that. Until companies go back in time and start looking after the good guys, nothing will change, says Peter McKenna. Yeah, we could do with a bit of looking after the good guys. Gary, yeah, echoing the point I made, we have turned into a disposable society. We're talking about sustainability on this show on a regular basis, if not daily. We're talking about trying to eke out a little bit more out of our machines, rather than running them for three years, 4 years, however many thousand hours, chop them in, get a new one in. We're trying to suggest that maybe, we run them for 4 or 5 years, 6 years. Maybe we get them rebuilt, reconditioned, remanufactured, and put them back to work, which is a fantastic idea, and I'm completely supportive of it. But if while doing that, you are on a regular basis, every 500 hours, you're unplugging components that contain vital metals, aluminium, copper, steel, whatever it might be, and throwing that in the bin to plug in a new one. All of your sustainability promises of remanufacturing, they're kind of balanced out. You're not achieving anything. You're still throwing shit in a landfill. Peter says it's not about health and safety anymore. It's how much can we make on the back of it? Well, yes. Yeah. Although, again, that I do think that is kind of counterintuitive when it comes to this. You would have thought, if you are the owner of an equipment fleet, be it a construction fleet, demolition fleet, and something goes wrong on a machine, you hear from site, something's gone pop on my Caterpillar excavator. You would have thought there'd be somebody sat in the office thinking, well, I could phone Finning and get one of them out, but it's probably going to cost them £100 just to arrive, plus the parts, plus the call out charge, plus. I'm going to get myself a big hefty invoice. Alternatively, I could phone the site and say, Dave, any chance you could? Yeah, no worry, Governor, I'll sort that out. And yet, because of, as I say, the sealed components, we don't do that anymore. John the Bull says, you never stop learning. If I ever do, that will be the time for me to hang up my hat. If I come to work in a day, or just going about my daily life and think, yeah, I've learned absolutely nothing today. That's one of the reasons I spend so much time on the internet. It's one of the reasons I read so much, because I'm constantly. Yeah, Dan says, I always try and be better than I was yesterday. Yeah, there you are. I mostly succeed. Every day is a school day, in my opinion, and I love it. That's how you get through life. And I see I'm getting paid for what I love doing. Yeah, paid to learn. Not a bad gig. There's a guy on YouTube, Ali's Digger Diary. He calls customers to try and fix it over the phone or read the fault codes so he can turn up with the right parts to save a double journey. Sure, I want to look him up. Surely that's the way forward, isn't it? Surely. And going back to this business about fault codes, I think that was part of the deal with John Deere. I think they had it all under sort of lock and key. It was like you had to consult the magic circle in order to fix your own tractor. That's all been opened up. Surely that is the way ahead. Surely. Anyway, people, look, Gary Muirhead has more sunbathing to do. He's probably about due to turn over and do the other side. I don't know which way he's watching this show at the moment. Maybe he needs to do his back or something. Maybe he needs to go to the bar. Maybe he needs some more pancakes. But whatever it is, we're an hour into this. It's time to call it a day. But Gary's just said, also down to some of these big contracts demanding equipment to be not older than 2 years. There's a thing that needs to stop. I understand where they're coming from, and I understand this suggestion of, newer machines don't break down. But you also want optimum sustainability. You can't have both. You either sign up to the whole sustainability thing and allow us to use an older machine, or you can have a 2-year machine and forget the fact that you're environmentally friendly, because you clearly are not. And Dan says, have a great Wednesday. Fantastic note to end on. Everybody, go and have a fantastic Wednesday. I try to do anything that Dan tells me to do, and he said, have a great Wednesday, so I'm going to go and do that. Everybody, have a fantastic day. If you can fix it, fix it. Worry about the consequences afterwards. I was talking to Fred about this last night, about our use of drones in certain places. Sometimes it's better to apologise than to ask for permission. That's the philosophy I'm living by these days. Everybody, have a fantastic day. See you soon.